due to the fact that we are a nonprofit. Thank you, Lisa. We are a nonprofit, and we do rely heavily upon our funding sources, and they are the ones that require this information from us. So if you'll please do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, that does help me whenever I do go to see some of the comments to whether or not I'm doing a good job, whether or not we are talking about timely information, what we can do better, and maybe what we could change, and what we're doing right. So that would be what we'd be looking for. Again, I welcome each and every one of you here today. As you see on the screen, my co-host today is Lisa Paddock, and Lisa works with me. We've been co-workers for many years, but Lisa's going to introduce our very special guest today. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you, everyone who's joining us both live and on Facebook Live, and maybe you're going to be watching this later. So as Jill said, my name is Lisa Paddock. I'm one of the directors and the central team leader here at InSource, and we are so pleased that you have joined us today. So thank you so much. And thank you also for scanning the QR code wherever you are, whenever you watch. And InSource is your parent training center for Indiana. We help families understand that special education process. We are here to assist in any way we can and build relationships. And we are celebrating our 50th year of existence this year. So today I am honored and pleased, Jill and I are, in order to introduce to you our good friend, Stephanie Garner. And Stephanie is the Director of Parent Support and Education at Down Syndrome Indiana. And you might be asking, tell me more. So Down Syndrome Indiana is a nonprofit serving families of individuals with Down syndrome from diagnosis through adulthood. DSI provides new parent resources, general resources and supports, educational advocacy, medical outreach, and more. Their mission is to enhance the lives of individuals with Down syndrome. So today we're so excited to have Stephanie come and talk with us a little bit about Down syndrome and what services DSI provides across the state. So at this point, again, please make sure that you sign in and get ready to learn more about DSI from Stephanie, and I will turn it over to her at this time. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Stephanie.
Excellent. Well, thank you, ladies. I am so honored to be here today, getting to talk with you about my very favorite topic, which is Down syndrome. I have been lucky enough to work at Down Syndrome Indiana for about 9 years now, and have had the pleasure of getting to interact with InSource a lot, and love the organization, and so honored that you guys asked us to present today. So I'm going to be talking about Down Syndrome Indiana and kind of Down syndrome in general. Again, my name is Stephanie, and I am the Director of Parent Support and Education for Down Syndrome Indiana. And this is my daughter, Lily. Lily just turned 13. And I actually have been involved with the organization for 13 years now. I'll tell you a little bit more about how I got involved throughout the presentation, but I just wanted to share a picture of her. Lily is my pride and joy, and she's just absolutely amazing. Truly a 13-year-old in every sense of the word, like all of the sass, all of the drama. She is something else entirely. But my pride and joy. Okay. So my plan for today is I'm going to talk just a little bit, do an overview of DSI, and then I'm going to tell you about what Down syndrome is in case you're not familiar with it. And then we're going to talk about Down syndrome throughout the lifespan. So I'm going to talk to you about what happens at each age and stage, and then I'll share with you supports that Down Syndrome Indiana offers for each of those ages and stages. So Down Syndrome Indiana is a nonprofit, and we officially serve 46 counties throughout central Indiana. We are not a membership organization, though, so we gladly give information and resources to anyone who needs it. We do a lot of new parent support for folks in northern and southern counties, only because a lot of those folks come to Indianapolis for medical care, and so they end up getting our new parent resources. And we love connecting with all families all across the state, but we recognize how important it is to have that local support. So we always refer families families from Fort Wayne or Evansville or Valparaiso to their local Down syndrome organization, because having people close by is so important to our families. Our mission at Down Syndrome Indiana is to enhance the lives of individuals with Down syndrome. We offer new parent packets, new parent resources, one-on-one connections through our First Call program, small group connections through our community groups, lots of educational opportunities, and a lot of large-scale, very family-friendly awareness events and activities. We offer a summer picnic every year. We offer a World Down Syndrome Day celebration. We have a holiday party, a hayride, and a lot of other stuff throughout the year. Our biggest event and fundraiser, though, by far, is our Buddy Walk Indianapolis. And that happens the first Saturday of October every year at White River State Park, downtown Indianapolis. And it is just a beautiful, beautiful day. I would highly encourage you to come out and join us. You can register a team for free. We usually have about 3,000 to 5,000 people who attend that event. We have an expo hall where we have lots of exhibitors, nonprofit organizations, therapy providers, many, many people sharing information and resources. And it truly is just a beautiful day. Down Syndrome Indiana doesn't get any federal funding, and we're not, we don't have like an overarching group that funds us. So almost all of our donations do come from like private donations or events like the Buddy Walk. We have a few grants, but we rely very heavily on events like the Buddy Walk. So wanted to share that information with you. And now I want to move in to talking about what is Down syndrome, because if you are anything like me, you learned a little bit about this when you were in school, and then it promptly went away. It really wasn't until my daughter was born that like a lot of this stuff became more fresh in my mind. So Down syndrome is the most commonly diagnosed chromosomal disorder in the United States. About 1 in every 691, 1 in every 700 babies born will have Down syndrome. The statistics show that about 7,000 to 8,000 people in Indiana have Down syndrome, and about 350 to 400,000 people in the United States have Down syndrome. Down syndrome wasn't named for the way that people with Down syndrome look or the way that they act. It was named for the British physician who first characterized the condition back in the 1860s. His name was John Langdon Down. That's also where the name comes from. So it isn't Down's syndrome. There's no apostrophe S. Because Dr. Down didn't have Down syndrome. So people with Down syndrome have a third copy of their 21st chromosome. And just a very basic science lesson. Each of us gets 23 chromosomes from our mom, 23 chromosomes from our dad, and they pair up. At the very earliest stages of cell division, we don't know why, but instead of a pair of chromosomes at chromosome 21, we end up with a triplication. We have 3 copies of that 21st chromosome. And just as a really interesting thing that I like to share, there are actually different types of Down syndrome. The most common type of Down syndrome is called trisomy 21. And that's where you have 3 copies of the 21st chromosome in every single cell in your body. 95% of people that you meet with Down syndrome will have trisomy 21. The rarest form of Down syndrome is called mosaic Down syndrome, and that's where you have 3 copies of that 21st chromosome in some cells, but not all of them. And this occurs in 1% to 2% of the people that you meet with Down syndrome. And then the third type is called translocation Down syndrome. And that's where you have a third copy of the 21st chromosome that actually attaches to a different chromosome. And this is actually the only type of Down syndrome that can be inherited. So if I have a baby with trisomy 21, which I do, and I'm going to have future children, I am not at an increased likelihood to have another baby with Down syndrome because my first one did, right? Because she had trisomy 21. But if she had translocation Down syndrome, then that means that my husband or I carry something in our genetic makeup that makes our children more likely to have Down syndrome. So again, just a little tidbit that I think is really fascinating. So that 21st chromosome, that extra chromosome, gives individuals with Down syndrome some characteristics that they have in common. Individuals with Down syndrome tend to have the almond-shaped eyes. They tend to be a little bit shorter in stature than their typically developing peers. They tend to have a flat or absent nasal bridge. Oftentimes, they'll have a single palmar crease, where most of us have two main creases. And they also tend to have an intellectual disability, which ranges from mild to moderate. This is my munchkin on here, by the way. I think she was probably 7 or 8 in that picture. I also like to share some common myths that I hear about folks with Down syndrome. I often hear that like all people with Down syndrome look alike, and that is absolutely not true. Folks with Down syndrome can look a little bit alike, but they absolutely look more like their parents or their siblings than they do other people with Down syndrome. My daughter is my mini me. Like there's no denying her. We look so much alike. Another myth that I hear all the time is that people with Down syndrome are always happy. And when Lily was little, and I would tell people that Lily had Down syndrome, almost everyone would say, "Oh my gosh, I bet she's happy all the time." And man, that nothing could be further from the truth. Ask any person who actually knows someone with Down syndrome, and they will set you straight on this, right? People with Down syndrome, just like you and I, have all the same thoughts and feelings and emotions that we have. They're happy and they're sad and they're mad and they're frustrated and embarrassed. All the feelings we feel, they feel too. They may not express those feelings in the same way that you or I would, but it doesn't mean they're not feeling it. Another thing that I hear all the time is that people with Down syndrome love to give hugs. Some people with Down syndrome do love to give hugs, just like some people with, 46 chromosomes like you and I have like to give hugs. And other people are like, no, thank you. I don't want to touch, right? People with Down syndrome, just like us, sometimes they like to hug, sometimes they don't. And the last myth that I'm going to share with you is one of the ones that makes me the most frustrated. And that is, I hear often like, oh, adults with Down syndrome are like little kids trapped in an adult body. And nothing could be further from the truth. Adults with Down syndrome are adults with adult thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it's very important that we treat them like that. And I think that adults with Down syndrome get this reputation for a couple of reasons. One, sometimes they like to do things that we would consider kind of childlike. Maybe they like to color. Maybe they like to watch Disney movies. Maybe they like to dress up at Halloween. But liking those things doesn't make you childlike, right? I love to do all of those things, and I'm very much an adult. The other reason that I think that sometimes people have this impression of adults with Down syndrome is that very often adults with Down syndrome need a little bit of extra help in activities of daily living. Maybe they need someone to help manage their finances. Maybe they need help with their medication administration or need a little bit of help cooking. And again, needing help doesn't make one less of an adult. I haven't managed any aspect of my finances since before I got married because I'm horrible at it. And it is to the point that my husband actually has a plan for if he dies, who will step in and help me because I am that bad at it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not an adult. It just means that I recognize where I need that help and support, right? Same with adults with Down syndrome. All right, I do want to touch just briefly on disability etiquette because I think that it is so important. The words that we use are powerful, and our words have the ability to help or hinder those around us. And it isn't about being politically correct, it's about giving every human being the respect and the value that they deserve. It's really important that we not use the R word. Many years ago, the official diagnosis for someone who had an intellectual disability was mental retardation. And people took that R word and they turned it into a slang word that means stupid, dumb, or ridiculous. And when that word is used, it is hurtful to people with disabilities, to people with Down syndrome, to people who love someone with a disability or someone with Down syndrome. So please don't use that word. If you hear folks using that word around you, please set them straight. Let them know that is absolutely not appropriate. And then the last thing that I want to talk about with disability etiquette is person first or people first language. Utilizing person first or people first language is so wonderful at giving someone value and respect. It is really important that we say a person with Down syndrome, a baby with Down syndrome, a worker with Down syndrome, because we are acknowledging that that person is more than that disability, more than just that diagnosis. If I were going to tell you about my daughter, I would tell you that she is silly and sassy and funny and dramatic and stubborn and loving. And I could go on and on and on telling you about my kiddo. And at some point, I would get to the fact that Lily has Down syndrome because she does. Down syndrome is a part of who she is, but that's all it is, one little part of this amazing person. And when you call her the Down syndrome student or my Down syndrome friend, it's like you're putting her in this box and you're saying the only thing that matters about this person is that diagnosis. And when you focus on Down syndrome, you miss out on so many other amazing things that she has to offer. Okay, I'm off of my etiquette soapbox. All right, so we're going to start now, and we're going to cover Down syndrome through the lifespan. And again, I'm going to tell you a little bit about each stage, and then I'll also talk with you about the services and supports that Down Syndrome Indiana offers. So, families who have a child with Down syndrome typically find out that their baby's going to have Down syndrome in one of three ways. Um, When they find out they're pregnant, some families will choose to undergo prenatal screening and or testing. Prenatal screening is typically offered very early in a pregnancy, and a lot of families do it because they want to find out the sex, the gender of the baby. And so sometimes when they agree to it, they don't even recognize they don't even realize that the chromosomal testing will also be done. So prenatal screening does not give you a positive or negative result. It gives you an increased likelihood that your baby may have Down syndrome. But to get a definitive diagnosis, you have to undergo prenatal testing. Prenatal testing would include an amniocentesis or a chorionic villus sampling. I'm probably not saying that right, a CVS. Unfortunately, both of those do come with a risk of miscarriage. So some families will choose not to undergo that testing. And they'll just, use that screening result, that increased likelihood. The other way that families find out prenatally that their baby is going to or may have Down syndrome is through the routine prenatal ultrasounds. Usually, pregnant folks will have a 20-week anatomy scan done. And the most common cause of a heart condition prenatally is a Down syndrome diagnosis because 50% of babies with Down syndrome will have a heart defect. So oftentimes, if something is noted on that anatomy scan, they may suspect that your baby has Down syndrome. And at that point, they would then recommend either doing further diagnostic testing, either that amniocentesis or a CVS, or just waiting to see. The third way that our families find out that their baby may have Down syndrome is, or that their baby does have Down syndrome, is through a postnatal diagnosis. So after a baby is born, that doctor often identifies features that are associated with Down syndrome. And that's when they'll let those parents know, hey, we see some things that make us think that your baby has Down syndrome. And then they have to do genetic testing to confirm that diagnosis. This is actually how we found out that Lily had Down syndrome. We chose not to do prenatal testing or screening. And we found out right after Lily was born that the doctors suspected that Lily was going to have Down syndrome. And within about 24 hours of Lily's birth, we had a new parent packet from Down Syndrome Indiana. So for over 25 years, DSI has been offering new parent packets and new parent resources. And it's such a wonderful and needed resource. Getting a Down syndrome diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming for families. It can be very scary. There are so many questions and so many unknowns. And so this packet can really help to guide a family in the right direction and help connect them to other families. Down Syndrome Indiana offers these new parent packets for free. Families can request them directly through our website. The link is on here, or you can email me, reach out to me if you need one. Um, and we can mail them to a family. We can deliver them in person to a family. We also provide them to hospital labor and delivery departments, to neonatal intensive care units, to maternal fetal medicine offices, to OBGYN offices, really anywhere where they might be making a Down syndrome diagnosis. We are happy to deliver those free of charge. And again, anywhere within our coverage area, we'll send them anywhere that needs resources. I got asked once to send one to Paris, France, the country, right? And I'm baffled because a lot of our resources are definitely Indiana specific, if not United States specific, but I sent it, right? Because we want people to have information and resources. Down Syndrome Indiana also offers our First Call program. We have over 100 trained mentor families who can talk with and kind of walk alongside new or expectant parents. Those First Call matches are based on whatever is important to that new or expectant family. Sometimes it's geography. They want to talk to somebody who lives in Lafayette or who lives on the south side of Indianapolis. Other times, maybe they want to match based on a specific medical diagnosis, or maybe they want to talk to a family who is bilingual and they want to know how that's going to impact their kiddo potentially. So we do that based on whatever is important to that family. And again, we have over 100 trained mentor families, and every year we do a First Call training and we get more parents who are filling that role. And I think it is one of our more impactful programs. It is truly kind of changing lives. And I do think for many of our families, it is that first connection with another parent that really starts to help them accept the diagnosis, to move on from that diagnosis. Talking with other families is amazing. And I know for me, my daughter had some health issues right after she was born. And so we didn't do a lot. We kind of kept our heads down and we're just trying to navigate the health things that were going on. And she was probably 5 or 6 months old. And she was doing well. All of the medical stuff was resolving or stabilizing. And I realized, whoa, like she's doing great, but I'm not okay. I need something. And the very first Down Syndrome Indiana activity they went to was one of our Moms Night Outs. Moms Night Out is one of our community groups I'll tell you more about later, but I went to a restaurant and sat down with probably 15 other parents, and it was so powerful to me. These were parents of other babies through adulthood, and just seeing the camaraderie, I walked away thinking, wow, this is something really special. And many of those ladies that I met that day almost 13 years ago are still some of my very dearest friends. So, connecting with other parents is so important. DSI also offers medical outreach. So we do provide those new parent packets, like I said, to all over the place to medical providers. We also have a medical outreach presentation that offers insight for providers into how new and expectant parents prefer to receive a Down syndrome diagnosis. And it is based on, research by amazing researchers and physicians on best practice standards, because some of our families don't always get their diagnosis in the best way possible. Some of them are told things that are not true. Parents are pressured into decisions. Receiving a diagnosis can be a really emotional time. And when you are not told in a kind, compassionate way, can have a really big impact on those first few years of your child's life. And I know for me, I had a wonderful diagnosis experience. My doctor came in after my daughter was born and she sat down next to me and she said, "Stephanie, you have a beautiful, perfect baby girl. We see some things that make us think she might have Down syndrome. We're going to do more tests and we're going to figure things out." And despite the fact that she said everything right and was so wonderful, my world still came crashing down. And so it is really important that we make sure that every family has the best possible diagnosis experience. So our families, um, it is really important that our kiddos receive early intervention services. Babies with Down syndrome can meet all the developmental milestones, but it takes them a little bit longer to get there. So early intervention services are so important. In Indiana, early intervention services are called First Steps. Families can either get a referral to First Steps from their pediatrician, or they can self-refer. They have to have an evaluation to determine what areas of need their baby has. And then they receive those services typically in their home or at their daycare. Services might include physical therapy, occupational therapy, developmental therapy, speech therapy, and there are many, many others. But these services can really make a difference in setting the tone for our kiddos to achieve all that they can achieve. Down Syndrome Indiana offers so many supports and services throughout this and other stages. Many of these things we do throughout the lifespan. I'm just choosing to talk about them when they first kind of come into play. One of the most important things that we can do during those early intervention years is help connect families to resources. Very often, when I talk to new families, I'm making sure that they are connected with the Medicaid waiver, that they are on the Medicaid waiver waiting list, or that they know about it, connected to the right waivers. We also connect them to other disability advocacy groups like InSource. It is so important for families to learn about their legal rights to free and appropriate public education before their kiddos are entering the school system. So encouraging families to look into InSource and get some training so that they can know the law. We also connect with other disability advocacy organizations like Indiana Family to Family, the ARC of Indiana, Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities, the Joseph Maley Foundation. We have amazing disability advocacy groups here in Indiana. And one of the things that I love as a provider, as someone who works for an organization, is that we work so well together. We are always coming together to help support families better. And it truly is a really beautiful thing. Other services that DSI offers, we have webinars that live on our website that cover things that new parents need to know up through adulthood. We've got webinars on financial planning, webinars on moving to Indiana, on therapy services, webinars on school supports, lots and lots of different topics. We're always trying to add to that list of webinars, and those are available. Families can get on our website at any time and review those at their leisure. We also offer a lot of different trainings throughout the year. We are currently doing an educational advocacy series. Once a month, we get together via Zoom and we talk about different topics. And then we have a little bit of education and then just time the parents can talk amongst each other and share ideas. It's truly, really powerful. We offer an annual conference every year. This year, our topic is Roadmap to the Future. It's going to be Saturday, May the 3rd. It is a very small cost to families. It's $25, but if a family doesn't have the financial means to attend, we gladly waive that fee for them because we never want cost to be a barrier for our families. We have this conference every single year. The topic varies from year to year based on whatever calls we're receiving. Where we see a lot of need, that's where we try and take our conference topics. And then we also offer community group connections. So Down Syndrome Indiana, because we cover such a wide geographical area, we know that that local support is really important. So we have, I think, 13 community groups right now. About half of those groups are geographically based. So those groups are located in Terre Haute, in Lafayette, up in Cass County, and Muncie on the east side of the state. We have on the west side of Indy, on the south side of Indy. And we also have some that are more identity based. We have a group for moms called our Moms Night Out. We have a group for dads called Dads Appreciating Down Syndrome. And incidentally, Dads Appreciating Down Syndrome is a national organization that actually started here in Indianapolis with our local dads chapter. And then we found that it was such a great program, it grew to a national organization. There are dads groups throughout the state and throughout the country, and I think even some internationally, just a really cool little side piece. We have a group for our Spanish speaking families. We have a group for our Black families. We have a group for adults with Down syndrome. All of these groups are led by parent volunteers from within that community. So they really know what it is that that particular community needs, and they're able to kind of plan those events and activities based on, what it is that that group needs within that area. All right. So our kids are entitled to free and appropriate public education from the age of 3 through 22. Many of our kiddos with Down syndrome will go to developmental preschool. Developmental preschool is where our kids first get their individual education program, their IEP. They are working with a special education teacher and instructional assistants, typically small student to teacher ratio. And it can be a really, really great stepping stone for our students. We do have other families who choose to forego developmental preschool in favor of community preschool because they really like that inclusive option of that community preschool. And we have other families still who want to do a hybrid option. For many of our families, it depends on their situation. There isn't a right or wrong choice for our families to make. My daughter went to developmental preschool. She was babysat by grandparents when she was in that 0 to 3 range. So consequently, a little spoiled. I'm not used to routine. So for her, developmental preschool was a really great stepping stone into that school environment. I have a good friend whose son went to community preschool. He had his IEP and was supported in a community preschool setting, and he did amazing and was very successful. And I know, many other people who have done more of a hybrid model. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. It really is what is best for your student and your family. So as students are transitioning from preschool into elementary school, I think that least restrictive environment, the location of where they're getting their services really is a lot more important. Article 7 is Indiana's special education law, and it guarantees all students the right to be educated alongside their typically developing peers with appropriate supports and services. And this is really, really important for our families to know. Sometimes people can look at our students' diagnosis. They can see that they have Down syndrome, and that they might think that it is best for them to be in a segregated classroom environment. And that is very rarely the case for a student with Down syndrome. Students with Down syndrome tend to be really good. I'm going to say mimics. That's not exactly the word I mean. Students with Down syndrome watch what's going on around them and they replicate that. So it's so important that our students with Down syndrome have really good age appropriate peer models. I did also want to mention just briefly that many of our families of children with Down syndrome are choosing to use the eligibility category of developmental delay before the age of 9 and other health impairment after the age of 9, rather than do IQ testing and use an intellectual disability eligibility category. It doesn't matter what eligibility category your student has in their IEP, they are still guaranteed the same supports and services, right? Supports and services are determined based on your student's need, not their eligibility category. Because the last thing that we want is for someone to look at your student's IQ score and say, okay, well, this student can't be in this classroom because of this IQ score. That's not legal, by the way. And we don't want our students limited by that IQ score. We don't want people to make preconceived judgments based on that number that really doesn't mean a lot for our students with Down syndrome. Um, Inclusion is really, really important for students with Down syndrome. Research shows us that students with disabilities who are included in a general education setting have the best, have better academic outcomes. It also tells us that adults who are included in school have better outcomes in socialization and employment. But in order for a student to be successful in their least restrictive environment, in more of a general education setting, it's incredibly important that that student receive the appropriate supports and services to succeed. So they're going to need accommodations to be successful, and that student may need modifications of that general education curriculum in some situations to be successful. And all of those things are absolutely okay. So Down Syndrome Indiana also offers a lot of supports to school age kiddos. In addition to all the things that we talked about before, we also offer DSI, the Learning Program. The Learning Program is a platform that was developed out in Orange County, California, many years ago. It is basically a program that teaches parents how kids with Down syndrome learn differently and how parents can support their learners at home to supplement what they're getting at the school environment. I believe this is our 8th year of running DSI, the Learning Program, and it is truly amazing and life-changing for families that participate. Our students generally are ages 3 to 4 through about 9 or 10 years old. DSI is doing more and more educational advocacy for families. We can consult with families over the phone and talk through issues and strategize things. We can attend IEP meetings when needed, as schedules allow, of course. Our goal is to help families understand how students with Down syndrome learn differently, and then help families navigate that sometimes very tricky educational network. And we do this in conjunction with fabulous groups like InSource. Very often, I will tell families like, oh, this is a little bit above my pay grade. I don't know a lot about the situation. Let's reach out to our InSource liaison. Let's reach out to Lisa because she's going to know so much more about this particular situation. So we very much work hand in hand with our friends at InSource. And Down Syndrome Indiana is also offering and really increasing the professional development opportunities that we offer to educators. So we can come in and talk with educators about how students with Down syndrome learn differently. We offer free professional development. We can also do school presentations to students on what Down syndrome is, how to be a good friend to someone with Down syndrome. And again, all of those are free. So transition to adulthood. This is my last two slides here. Transition to adulthood can be kind of a tricky time to navigate. It is really important for adults with Down syndrome that we maintain socialization. A lot of folks with Down syndrome really struggle during that transition from high school to adulthood because they go from high school where their day is very structured, where they have so much socialization. They've got friends all around them. Their day is all planned for them. There's so many activities. And then they graduate and a lot of their friends have maybe moved away to go to college or, have full-time jobs or are, doing different things. And it can be really isolating. So it's really important that we have a robust social life for our adults with Down syndrome, and that they have the opportunity not only for socialization, but to continue to learn. Adults with Down syndrome also need employment and volunteer opportunities. Folks with Down syndrome make wonderful additions to your workplace, whether they are in a paid role as an employee or a volunteer role. I highly recommend that you talk with your job about how can we get folks not only with Down syndrome, but folks with disabilities involved in our workplace. At DSI, we have a staff member who has Down syndrome, and we also have many, many wonderful volunteers who do so many amazing things for us who have Down syndrome. So, if all of us would go out and talk to our employers, think of what a change that would make in the world. And then health and wellness is another area that's really important to folks with Down syndrome. I mean, obviously, having a healthy lifestyle is important to all of us, but particularly for adults with Down syndrome. And honestly, it starts in the teenage years. We're starting to struggle with this with my daughter. Individuals with Down syndrome can struggle to maintain a healthy weight and, make good choices. And adults with Down syndrome are at an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Just as an interesting point of fact, the link between Down syndrome and Alzheimer's is actually that 21st chromosome. So the plaque that builds up in your brain when you have Alzheimer's is beta amyloid plaque, and the precursor to that plaque is actually located on the 21st chromosome. And that's why folks with Down syndrome are more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease as they age. But DSI is very committed to helping families to navigate this, making healthy lifestyle choices, and keeping that socialization up. So we do that in several ways. We have our self-advocate community group, which I mentioned earlier. We get together every couple of months and do really fun activities throughout the community. We also have a self-advocate Facebook page where folks can come together. And we are doing a self-advocate conference every year. This will be our third annual self-advocate conference. It'll be on May the 3rd. We do it in conjunction with our parent or caregiver conference. It's a really fun day, a lot of laughter, a lot of learning happening. It's really great. We also have some really great programming. We now have a program coordinator who runs our Circles program, which is a program for adults with disabilities that teaches social boundaries and social norms. We have our 3-2-1 Go program, which was developed by the National Down Syndrome Society, and it promotes healthy lifestyles through physical activity, balanced nutrition, and emotional wellness. It is a fabulous program. This will be the third year for us running 3-2-1 Go, and it has been amazing for participants to kind of navigate all of these aspects of wellness. And one of the things that I think has been really impactful is like having parents and caregivers see the importance of everyone embracing that healthy lifestyle, because it is hard for our individuals with Down syndrome to make changes if their family isn't living that lifestyle and making those changes. So we all have to kind of get on board together to live a healthier lifestyle, because it is so important for our adults with Down syndrome. And then we also have our Live Laugh Dance program, which is a summer dance program for adolescents and adults with Down syndrome. We have amazing volunteers, amazing college volunteers. We usually partner with Franklin College, and it's usually a 6-week program. They get together, they learn some choreographed dances, they put on a recital at the end, and it's a really, really beautiful program. So you can learn more about all of those programs at the website that's listed. And then we also are seeing an increased need to talk about Down syndrome and Alzheimer's, aging and Down syndrome, because it does really impact our adults with Down syndrome. And we are seeing more and more caregivers who need that help and support. So we've got information on our website. We have really great resources from the National Down Syndrome Society that we can share with families. And we are always working to learn more and to partner with families. So that is Down Syndrome Indiana in a nutshell. I am so grateful to work at such an amazing organization. And as the Director of Parent Support and Education, it is my honor to be able to be the person who talks to families when they have issues, when they have questions. And I definitely do not have all of the answers by far, but I know some really amazing people, and I'm always appreciative to be able to connect with other amazing advocacy organizations and help families get the answers that they need. So, okay. Questions? Anyone?
Stephanie, thank you so much. That was such great information. You were talking about myths, and I wanted to throw one your way that I'd heard. Sometimes people believe that you can only have a child with Down syndrome if you're much, much older. But my understanding is that's not necessarily accurate, that many babies are born to younger mothers.
Yes, so it is true that mothers of advanced maternal age do have an increased likelihood of having a baby with Down syndrome. But the reality is, most babies with Down syndrome are born to moms between the ages of 18 and like 35. And that's really just because of statistics, right? More people in that age range are having babies. So that's a good one. Yes.
And my other question, your first call parents, are they all parents of children with Down syndrome? Or are there, parents that have children maybe with other special health needs?
We don't have we might have one or two parents of children with other special healthcare needs, but the majority of our first call parents are parents or siblings. We have had some community members go through the training at different times. We're always happy to have people participate, because the more we can share how to talk to new families and what's good to say and what we should avoid saying, the better our new families are going to feel, the better those interactions are going to be.
Thank you. And again, thank you for this. Speaking to the respectful language and person-centered, and doing away with words we don't use anymore, looking for educational excellence, and helping support parents and family along the way. So it was wonderful to hear all the programs that DSI has. And we do not have any questions in the chat here. Jill, I will turn it over to you.
I don't have any questions that I've posted on Facebook Live, so I don't have any there. But I just really want to thank you, Stephanie, for being here today, because I learned a lot. Just the science, just the little snippet of the science was very interesting to me. I had no idea that there was 3 areas that were part of the Down syndrome. And I didn't know where the name had ever come from. So that was a very, very interesting experience for me. I do want to just briefly touch on the person-to-person language. And I so greatly appreciate you pointing that out. And just know that we all work so hard to make sure that there are certain things, certain words that are pretty much abolished from our language. And I greatly appreciate you bringing that to the table today. And
well, Jill, let me jump in and just say, I usually say this in my presentation, but I neglected to mention it. If you meet an individual with a disability who asks you to use disability first language when you are talking to them or referring to them, always, always, always defer to that person and their request, because they are the expert on their disability. So I think the person first language is a safe default, but always be respectful of what an individual with a disability is asking you to do or say, because they are the one who is the expert.
Sorry, and that's excellent. No, that's an excellent point, because we all have that discussion in our communities, and being respectful of that person's understanding and what they would like is exactly correct. So thank
Right.
you so much.
Yeah, yeah, because I have an adult child that and so Lisa, you do too. And so it does, I appreciate you pointing that out about let them, follow what they are wanting. Because sometimes whenever we are bringing them up, we don't have the opportunity for them to speak up and say, what they want to be called or anything like that, or how they want people to even look at them. And it's usually much later whenever they've become an adult, whenever it's like, oh, the aha moment. And we teach our kids so much about already the disability language, the people first language. And if you're not used to being within that realm every day and immersed in it every day, you do have the tendency, I think, to forget or not even know. So thank you so much for bringing that to the table today. And just just a kind of a segue off of that, we had a presenter, Kathy Snow, that had presented for InSource several years ago, and she has a great book that is People First Language. And she has a child with a disability but this book has been out for many, many, many years. That was one of the first books that I had ever read. That tells you how old my son is. But thank you very much for pointing that out, and also for pointing out that this is a lifelong. This is not something that is done and over with. When they leave First Steps or when they leave school. We have three very, very different realms here. We have that First Steps, that birth to 3. Then we have that 3 to 22 with the educational system. And then we have that 22 to 26, that all of that transition. And then, the fourth realm really is that life after all of that. And so, it just doesn't end at a certain age. And thank you again for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. I know that you have to run,
Yes.
but
I have 5 minutes, so
I really want to remind everybody that October the 4th, that is the Buddy Walk. And if you have never participated, I've never participated down in Indianapolis. I've always participated in Terre Haute. And so that's a very important day. And even though I don't have a child with that has Down syndrome, I do know that it is a very important day, and it's something very important to really, if you can attend. I would like to extend the invitation for you to come back and present for us again, and maybe around that time, so we can bring some more awareness to the Buddy Walk. If you wouldn't mind, maybe giving us some dates, pencil that in
yeah,
sometime,
that'd be amazing.
so that we can kind of just make sure that you have a good representation from this side.
Oh,
Okay.
that'd be fabulous. Thank you so much.
And Stephanie, where is your conference being held? Is it the same location as other years?
So it will be at the Mirage Shrine in the Tunisian Room this year.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
that's where our parent conference will be. Our self advocates will be across the street at our office. So they'll have
Okay.
a little more autonomy without
That's right.
parents or
Yep.
caregivers hovering.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
and
thank
thank you
you.
for that too. Now,
Yes.
if somebody wants to attend that, I'm just going to assume there is information on your website, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. If they go to www.dsindiana.org, it's under our calendar of events. It's our annual conference. Our self advocate conference actually has its own page. And so you just click on the link and you can register. And again, there's a $25 fee. Self advocate conference is free, but if we never want a parent to not attend because they don't have the finances. So there is an option to let us know that you need financial assistance, and we will gladly offer that.
And when was that date again?
It is May the 3rd. It's a
Okay,
Saturday, first Saturday in May.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome.
I do want to check.
And I have been to the conference and it is wonderful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything off of Facebook. And so we do have all of the information. We have information out there about the Buddy Walk. We have information about Down Syndrome Indiana. We also have the information on our information. But yes, please. And again, Stephanie, thank you so much. I know that you have to run. I really, really appreciate that. For those of you that are on Facebook or on our Zoom platform, please know that I greatly appreciate you being here today. Please look forward to some more of our webinars. They will be coming up next week.
Jill, we have asked to put the QR code back up,
Yes, yes,
please.
absolutely. And Stephanie, I know you have to
yep,
run, so
you
if
have
you'd like to
Okay.
go.
That's right.
Go.
Thank you,
Bye,
Stephanie.
ladies. Thank you, everyone.
And so thank you again today for everyone who joined our InSource webinar. InSource is the Parent Training Center for Indiana. We help families understand that special education process. And so we are here to walk along in the journey, celebrating our 50th year of existence. So Jill, thank you for putting that back up.
And I also put it back in the chat box on here
Thank
on
you.
Zoom, and it is on our Facebook page. It's the tiny URL. It's the very first link. If you can't use your the QR code, please feel free to use that one there.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Jill, next week we have another wonderful webinar.
We do.
And we have Sarah Kiefer from the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education. And she's going to come and talk about what do they do. And that's because it is so important for families, community stakeholders, schools, everyone to know about the vetted resources we have in Indiana. And we are very fortunate, as Stephanie said, to have lots of good organizations that work together to support families and individuals and their community in their community, so they can access services and be educated. So next Thursday is going to be Sarah Kiefer from the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education, and she's going to come and talk about those services. And I don't have any information in the chat, no questions besides the QR code. And that is all that I have. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Jill, I'll turn it back over to you.
And I don't see anything here on our Facebook page nor in our chat box. Again, thank you everyone for being here today. Really, really appreciate your support and being here and listening to Stephanie and the information that she was able to bring us for from Down Syndrome Indiana. Again, and if you get a chance on Monday, you can stop in at 1 o'clock. And we'll be doing Monday Minutes, and we'll be going through our what's coming up for the week, but we will also be doing a look into our parent-to-parent guide. So please, if you want to jump in there, you're more than welcome to. So at this time, I don't see anything, Lisa. Thank you so very much for being my my co-host. I really appreciate all of your support too. Thank you to the moderator that is out on our Facebook Live. Thank you for your support and all of your help today too. I appreciate that. So if there's no more comments, then I will say that we will see everyone again next week. Next Thursday, we will be here at 1:30, and we'll be here with Sarah Kiefer.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next week.
Everyone have a great day.